A tree with no brain, no eyes, and no nervous system can identify its own children growing in the soil around it, and deliberately send them extra food. This is not a theory. This is not a metaphor. This is documented, peer-reviewed, replicated science published in one of the most respected journals in the world. And the scientist who proved it was ignored, dismissed, and professionally sidelined for 20 years. By the end of this video, you're going to understand something about forests that will make every walk through trees feel completely different for the rest of your life. Welcome to the Living Archive. Here is what I am going to show you today. Underneath every healthy forest on Earth, there is a network. Ancient, vast, and operating right now as you watch this, through which trees are sharing food, sending warnings, and recognizing their own family members. Scientists call it the mycorrhizal network. The Internet calls it the Wood Wide Web. And what it does to our understanding of what a forest actually is, what it means for the trees we are cutting down every day, is one of the most important and most ignored stories in modern science. In the early 1990s, a young forest ecologist named Suzanne Simard was working in the forests of British Columbia, Canada. And she kept noticing something that did not fit the textbook. The textbook said forests were competition. Every tree fighting every other tree for light, water, and nutrients. Survival of the fittest. Darwin in the dirt. But trees growing in isolation, with no competition, with all the resources to themselves, were dying faster than trees growing in crowded forests surrounded by other trees. If competition was the rule, isolation should have produced stronger trees. It was producing weaker ones. Something was happening between trees that nobody had ever measured. Simard designed an experiment. She wrapped individual trees in plastic bags and pumped in radioactive carbon dioxide, a form of carbon with a traceable marker she could follow with instruments. If carbon from one tree ended up inside another tree, she would know exactly how it got there. She waited. She tested. She measured. The carbon moved. From birch trees to Douglas firs, across species, through the soil, one tree feeding another through a connection nobody had mapped. She dug into the soil and found what was carrying it. Fungi, specifically mycorrhizal fungi, a type that forms partnerships with plant roots, extending outward through the soil in threads thinner than a human hair, called hyphae. These threads connect root system to root system, tree to tree, across an entire forest. The forest was not a collection of competing individuals. It was a network. But here is where the story stops being interesting and starts being extraordinary. Because sharing nutrients through a fungal network could just be passive. Water flows downhill without choosing to. Nutrients could flow along concentration gradients without any direction or intention. What Simard found next ruled that out completely. The oldest trees in the forest were not just connected to more trees than the younger ones. They were behaving differently toward specific trees. They were behaving differently toward their own children. Simard called them mother trees. The biggest, oldest trees in a forest, the ones with the most connections in the mycorrhizal network, sometimes hundreds of connections, were acting as hubs. And when Simard studied what was flowing through those hubs, she found something that stopped her cold. Mother trees were sending significantly more carbon and nutrients to seedlings that were their own genetic offspring than to unrelated seedlings growing right next to them. A tree was recognizing its own children, not with eyes, not with a brain, not with any organ we would recognize as a sensory system. The leading hypothesis involves chemical signaling through root exudates. substance released into the surrounding soil that carry molecular information. A parent tree may recognize the chemical signature of its own seedlings and respond by opening the flow of nutrients through connected fungal threads. But whatever the mechanism, the behavior is documented and reproducible. It goes further. When a mother tree is dying, when it is diseased or damaged or being cut down, it floods the network with an enormous pulse of carbon. It sends everything it has left into the surrounding forest before it goes. Scientists believe this is the tree transferring its stored resources to its offspring and neighbors before it cannot anymore. A dying tree, giving everything it has left to the forest that will outlive it. Now, I need to tell you something uncomfortable, because everything I have just described, the network, the mother trees, the carbon pulse, the recognition of offspring, all of it depends on one thing being true. The old trees have to still be there, and we are cutting them down faster than at any point in human history. What happens to a forest when you remove its mother trees is not what the logging industry told governments for a century. And the data, the actual documented data, is something the timber industry has spent considerable money trying to keep out of environmental policy discussions. I am going to show you exactly what that data says. Industrial forestry has operated for over a century on a simple mathematical model. You cut the big trees down, you plant new ones. The forest regenerates. The numbers balance. Simard's research and the growing body of work it inspired shows this model is missing something fundamental. When you clear-cut an old-growth forest, you do not just remove the trees. You destroy the mycorrhizal network that took centuries or millennia to establish. You remove the mother trees that the entire network is organized around. You eliminate the fungal infrastructure that young seedlings depend on for survival in their first years. The replanted monoculture that grows in its place, rows of identical young trees, same species, same age, has none of this. No network, no mother trees, no history. It is a forest in shape only. Simard's own research in British Columbia showed that when mother trees were removed from a forest, survival rates of young Douglas fir seedlings dropped significantly. The seedlings that should have been receiving carbon support through the network were not receiving it because the network had been destroyed. They were growing, but they were growing alone. And trees that grow alone, as Simard noticed at the very beginning of her research, do not survive as well as trees that grow connected. Here is the part that matters for every forest policy decision being made right now. Old-growth forests, the ones that have never been logged, that have been growing in place for centuries, are not just collections of large trees. They are accumulated networks, accumulated relationships, accumulated biological memory built up over hundreds of years of connection. Once cut, that cannot be replanted. It has to regrow from nothing. And the science suggests that process takes not decades but centuries, if it happens at all in a warming climate. We are not losing trees. We are losing archives. Now, I want to be honest with you about something, because the living archive does not tell you what to think. It tells you what the evidence actually says. Not every scientist agrees with every claim that has been made about the Wood Wide Web. The 2024 review of 28 field experiments found that only 5 showed clear evidence of nutrient transfer between trees through fungal networks. Some researchers argue that popular media has stretched Simard's findings beyond what the data strictly proves. The question of whether trees are intentionally communicating, or whether nutrients are simply flowing passively along concentration gradients, the way water flows downhill, remains genuinely open. These are legitimate scientific debates, and they matter. But here is what is not in debate. The networks exist. The connections exist. The resource sharing exists. Mother trees have more network connections than younger trees, and their removal affects the survival of seedlings around them. Trees release chemical and hormonal signals that travel through soil. Old-growth forests function differently from planted monocultures in ways that have direct, measurable consequences for ecosystem health. The details are still being worked out. The fundamental picture, that forests are interconnected systems and not collections of competing individuals, is supported by enough evidence that it has changed how ecologists think about forest management worldwide. Suzanne Simard spent 30 years being questioned and sidelined for saying something that turned out to be more right than wrong. She published her findings in Nature in 1997. Her TED Talk has been watched over 6 million times. Her book, Finding the Mother Tree, became a bestseller. And in forests across British Columbia, logging guidelines have been quietly updated to protect the largest, oldest trees, the mother trees, in harvested areas. Not because of politics, because of the data. The next time you walk into a forest, any forest, try to hold this thought. Every tree around you is part of a system that has been building, connection by connection, for longer than any city on Earth has existed. Carbon is moving through the soil under your feet right now. Chemical signals are traveling between roots. Somewhere in that forest, if the old trees are still standing, a mother tree is doing something that looks, if we are honest about what the evidence shows, remarkably like care. We spent centuries looking at forests and seeing timber. Suzanne Simard looked at the same forests and saw a family. The science is still being argued over, but the forest was never silent. It was talking the whole time. We just did not know how to listen. This has been The Living Archive. Next week, a seed kept in a clay jar for 2,000 years. Someone planted it in 2005. It grew, and what it told scientists about a civilization that the Romans tried to erase from history completely. Subscribe. You do not want to miss that one. See you next Tuesday.